I've been looking forward to this commercial Telugu film for quite some time, not particularly because the themes of the movie from the trailer intrigued me, but because I genuinely was curious on what this film is about as Baman Irani shouted at the top of his lungs, describing Ramcharan as crossover athlete. Buchi Babu, the director who got a lot of commercial success and acclaim through his last film Openna that featured young actors in the lead, catapults into getting his chance on whether he can prove his mettle with one of the biggest stars from the industry. This movie has been 4 years in the making, being confirmed in November of 2022, and the biggest point of debate has been twofold. Can a relatively new director in the industry prove himself when the pressure is on? And two, can Ramcharan, who post RRR has genuinely been struggling, delivering one dud after the other, giving more fire to the phenomena of the SSR curse, actually feature in something compelling and unique? Peddi focuses on an unnamed village that rests on the mountains. The inhabitants of the village provide labor to a place called Vijaynagar. Pedi, played by Ramcharan, is a star in every regard, a famous cricket player of the village on who there are bets placed. The consistent fight for basic respect, empathy, and recognition from the government officials remains the sole pursuit of the inhabitants of this mountain village. The demand of the people is that the train that passes by their village acknowledges their presence and stops there like a station in order to counter the arduous journey and trek they otherwise embark upon just for labor. And even beyond that, just basic recognition of their existence. The disrespect that Peddi and his people suffer in every aspect of life, and how he uses the medium of sport to garner recognition and fight for their official identity, forms the basic premise of Peddi. It's not as basic as it sounds, because my god does this movie traverse through several complicated paths to get to its point. Here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the film so that you guys can ultimately decide whether to watch Peddi in theaters or not. The good: cinematography and production design. If there is one thing I can genuinely give credit to this film, it has been shot brilliantly. In the era of sound stages, AI slop and CGI backdrops galore, other than that one frame that remains the point at which the train passes by the village, which is poorly rendered digitally, you genuinely feel transported to a village that is subject to caste and class oppression, that is not easily accessible, that is treacherous and overwhelming in scale, a dense forest cover and a hilly terrain that establishes the scale of the film. The establishment in which Peddi wrestles, the crowd which gathers for the cricket matches, the geography of the backdrop genuinely makes you feel like there has been a meticulous effort in at least transporting you to the world of Peddi. A lot of credit needs to be given to cinematographer R. Ratnavelu, for there is this rustic texture, this omnipresent grain to the film that makes you feel like it's a story from the heartland. When I look at R. Ratnavelu's filmography, he genuinely hit it out of the park with a venture like Rangasthalam, and that could be the best parallel I can create, at least visually, for it is another movie set in the rural landscape. The production design by Kola Avinash needs to be praised, as even though I absolutely facepalmed at the several twists and turns the movie was taking, especially on the capability of Peddi as an athlete, the set design of the akhada, the setup of the professional wrestling matches provided an authentic switch from when someone pushes themselves as an amateur to a professional. There are many times where you see commercial movies in India, you hear about these massive budgets being invested in films, and you see the frames and wonder where all the investment went. Thankfully, the investment is visible and clear in this movie. It does translate to what you see on the big screen. Ramcharan and some glimpses. An actor like Ramcharan has genuinely dedicated his blood, sweat and tears to this role. You see it in the suffering, you see it in the physical transformation, and you see it in the willingness to persevere despite all the roadblocks that come in Peddi's way. But there is a responsibility that I want to question Ramcharan about, regarding what compelled him to believe that this is the right choice, so much so that 4 years get spent in developing it. How many times can one segregate a great performance in a below average film and not leave some burden of responsibility to the star himself? We have to admit that we are a star obsessed country. In a space like the Telugu film industry, especially for any project, the needle only shifts when there is an association of star with the project. It is the only reason that a budget gets allocated to a script. It's the presence of a star that allows it. But what compelled Ram to do this routine and tiring film? Routine because it follows so many problematic tropes of Telugu cinema, tiring because it makes Peddi not a hero but a superhero capable of anything in the world. I rant like this because often the failures of these movies fall on the director and the success is something showered on the lead actor. I believe there is an equal responsibility of the star, for their association mounts this movie to become a close to 300 crore budget film. While I get ahead of myself in my slight rant regarding the same, Ramcharan is probably the only element in the ensemble cast that made me sit for the 3 hours and 11-minute running time, and it's not just enough enough to salvage the film. The journey of Peddi goes through several oscillating emotions of blatant brashness, of unchallenged confidence, of fearless rivalry, of genuine pain and loss, and still persevering despite the curveballs flung at him. And Ram shines through the entire spectrum of emotions, but it's just not enough to save this sinking ship. Of the supporting cast, I can only praise Jagapati Babu, who shines in an emotional scene, and Shiv Rajkumar as his wrestling coach, who has great dignified presence about himself. The rest of the cast genuinely is either forgettable or ham their way through the film. The underwhelming aspects. Terrifying romantic dynamic. I've made a career out of talking about Matlab Kuch Bhi moments in Indian cinema, and I thought that at least when it comes to big commercial movies that get so much scrutiny from the public, that the makers will be conscious of certain social themes, but my god, is the romantic dynamic in this film disgusting and terrible. Ramcharan is presented as a man who is desperate to get married. He is smitten by Janhvi Kapoor, who, by the way, in her introduction shot is presented with a camera shot that pans from her navel to her bosom, revealing her face. Ramcharan constantly leches at her, ogles at her, while the filmmaker is adamant to focus the camera on her navel and her bosom constantly. I kid you not that the camera literally goes from a frame of Ramcharan staring to a shot on the big screen of just Janhvi Kapoor's chest. The romantic dynamic is so dated and problematic that Ramcharan boasts with his friend that he will just have to find a way to trap her. So he barges into her house late at night and without her consent grabs her, kisses her and runs away. She is traumatized that someone did this, but our hero gallivants and carries on living life like nothing happened. The one song that I fell in love with prior to the movie releasing was Chickiri, and now that song itself is ruined for me, for its context in the film is so problematic. A hero dancing away to glory because he just assaulted a girl. The exploitation of this brash behavior is so tone deaf, so irresponsible that I facepalmed again, because the defense is that I am a brash village man who only knows how to convey romance through touch, and Janhvi is easily convinced of the same. The romantic dynamic in this film is one of the most unnecessary and regressive ones I have seen in the last few years, and will definitely feature in the Matlab Kuch Bhi episode soon. How do actors say yes to this? How do they believe that this is still okay is beyond me. I thought spending 5,000 rupees to get a kiss in Pushpa was low, but this takes the cake of possibly being one of the worst romantic dynamics I have seen in film in the last few years. A.R. Rahman, hamming, and the drag narrative. I have come to the conclusion that there is something just missing or random in the quality of A.R. Rahman's music in the commercial template in Indian films. While his classic singles and scores may work for epics or romantic films, there is just something odd about his sound design for commercial Indian movies. There are instances where the score of the film is interesting. This is especially true for one dramatic sequence following Jagapati Babu, or the score associated with Ramcharan's wrestling matches in which he is essentially partaking in a handicap match. But the singles are not memorable at all. It doesn't help that the choreography also is static, aggressive, and mainly designed so that it can be captured in the vertical format. Singles like Rai Rai Rara introducing Ramcharan, Masa Masa that is dispersed throughout the screenplay are extremely forgettable, and there is also a forced integration of an item song with Shruti Hassan, an absolute travesty in terms of a song choreography and not even reaching the criteria of even being, well, a sexy dance number. The ensemble cast is filled with actors from various states and languages, and they put forth some of the most over-the-top performances, hamming their way through the film, assuming who in their right mind is going to stop them. You have Baman Irani saying the most cringe dialogues throughout the movie. When asked about what is the main problem with the state of sports in this country, he says, "This generation's interest is Temple Run and Candy Crush. Since phones have come, no one goes outside," with all seriousness in his face. Him traversing through the arduous forests and hilly terrain just so that he can get a glimpse of Peddi is associated with a hype man whose only job throughout the film is to do the "Tum jante ho wo kaun tha." Divyendu plays a very stereotypical villain, having little to no personality beyond him while having a fickle ego. And the worst case of hamming is a character played by Ravi Kishan, who is a wrestling coach too, and he is found mostly shouting and frothing in the mouth. I have not seen more generic villains in a narrative that is essentially a sports drama and a quest for basic respect and identity. The narrative drags mainly because the director is adamant that Peddi is not some ordinary athlete. He is this crossover athlete capable of anything, which I believe transitions to become the next point: mockery of sport. I am all for suspension of disbelief. That is the purpose of cinema and its impact too. That if you can convince me that it is plausible that Junior NTR crashes a party of British officials with all the species of the animal kingdom, I will buy it. But you have to convince me of it. If you make me believe that a blind voiceover artist is capable of killing those responsible for the death of his wife, Daredevil style, I'll buy it. If you convince me of it. But Peddi tries to establish this man as capable of anything in the world. The man is a star cricket player of the village. The cricket matches are absolutely atrocious with the CGI ball and just random shots everywhere. The man makes the best jaggery. Unless he puts his hand in the preparation, it won't get sold nationally. The man, within a few minutes in the narrative of the film, becomes a star wrestler. And in the introduction scene, which you may have seen in the trailer, we also get that he, well, maybe a star sprinter too. These are sports where athletes spend their entire life in mastering technique and form, and our hero over here with a mere montage ends up becoming the best, not only in the district level but in the nation. The reason why stories like Dangal and Sultan were effective was because the makers had a laser focused approach in being a sports drama specifically on wrestling, while in the process becoming a commentary on several aspects of Indian society. The reason why tales like Pan Singh Tomar or Bison were effective was because the grilling training for that one sport made you feel the journey was worthwhile. The commentary on societal oppression or the gripe against the government were effective because it was grounded in reality, in one sport being one's calling. But here, whatever Peddi touches turns to gold, and it is an extension of filmmakers believing that the stars are demigods and that the audience is ready to believe that they are capable of anything in the world. This is where I come to the conclusion that there is a gap between intention and execution in Peddi. It is no way unintentionally funny and a disaster like Game Changer, but it is no way a home run, and I believe it's because how much the director feels he can stretch the narrative and essentially create a superhero film with our leading man. Had Ramcharan not been associated with this movie, especially the last 30 minutes, it would have been mocked as peak Matlab Kuch Bhi content because the pivot in sports and what Peddi excels at becomes laughable. Had the tale been of wrestling, cricket, or even running solely, I genuinely believe this film could have been a far more effective film because it would have been believable and inspiring. It takes such audacious leaps in the process that I had to conclude by acknowledging that the intention of the filmmaker is earnest. The quest for empathy, recognition, respect, and identity for those downtrodden and for those who don't have access to basic amenities or even a voice in this nation. But the execution is conveyed through such an over-the-top fashion that I believe it becomes a total mockery of sports and athletes in this country too. And that was a video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about Peddi. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.